On the way to the Great Hall, he asked for his father as any 2-year-old would, and I snapped in return. "He's gone," I told him in that narrow corridor where only the nursemaid could hear. "He doesn't want us anymore." The boy didn't understand my words, but the sharp tone was enough to send tears rolling down his cheeks, a faint reflection of how I had spent the night before. Now Tan rubbed his eyes, and I realized I didn't want to wait a moment longer. I turned to the priests and opened my mouth. Before I could utter a single word, the doors opened. "Crown her," my advisor said, breaking into the hall. His face had the paleness of a man who had looked into a mirror that morning and seen his own death. His sandals clicked on the polished earth floor. "Prince Rael Ikesar left last night." You could hear the weight of the words echo against the walls. In the silence that followed, I thought I could make out the rising heartbeats of every man and woman in that room. Not a day goes by that I am not reminded of what was lost to my father's war. Even bated breaths could signal the start to that old argument, that old fear that I, too, may one day plunge the land into blood and fire once more. Eventually, the Kaibori priest cleared his throat. "We must delay until the prince can be found. This day was approved by our order set in stone years ago," the Akateru priest replied. "It is a bad omen to change it." "Every day is like any other," the Kaibori priest intoned. "You and your superstitions." My advisor stepped up to the dais to face them. Both priests towered over him. His mouth, which was surrounded by a beard that looked like a burnt rodent, was set in a thin line. "Warlord Lu Shai sent a message this morning congratulating Jin Sayeng's lack of a leader. He will march against us by tonight for breaking the treaty if we do not crown her." I didn't bother to pretend to be surprised. "Rael is hiding there, I assume," I said. It was such a bald-faced move. Put me in a situation where I could not do anything but create trouble, throw the wolf into a sea of sick deer. Whatever will she do? Warlord Lu Shai once considered himself my father's friend, but daring me to make trouble in front of the other warlords was one step too far. My advisor turned to me and bobbed his head up and down like a rooster in the grass. I gritted my teeth. Get that crown. I didn't want to give them a reason to think I wasn't fulfilling my end of the bargain. The Kaibori priest was closer to it. He didn't move. "My lords," I said, looking at the warlords, the select few who were not too ill or infirm or couldn't find the right sort of excuse to avoid the coronation. "You agreed to this alliance. You all signed it with your own blood, do you remember? Years ago, you all cut your arms, bled into a cup, and drank from it to mark the joining of Jin Sayeng as one. Not even Lord Rael and I have the power to stop this." There was a murmur of assent, a whisper, not an outcry. But I went with it. I turned to the priests. The Akateru priest had already dropped his head, eyes downcast. The other eventually forced his knees into a bow. They took the smaller crown. It was made of beaten gold, both yellow and white, set on a red silken headpiece. My father had it made not long after I was born, commissioned from a famous artisan from some distant town. I stared at it while the priests began their rituals, one after the other. I could have done without the Kaibori, but I didn't want to risk offending the Ikesar supporters in the crowd. They crowned me with reluctance. No spirits came to crest a halo around my brow or send a shaft of light to bless the occasion. In fact, it was cloudy, and a rumble of thunder marked the beginning of a storm. I wondered when they would discover the body, or if they already had, and were just too afraid to tell me. Even after I became queen, the rumors continued. I was powerless to stop them. I should have been more, they said. More feminine, subtle, the sort of woman who could hide my jibes behind a well-timed titter. I could have taken the womanly arts, learned to write poetry or brew a decent cup of tea,